Welcome everyone to the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu's Tuesday night Pau Hana. I've just learned this is the #1 Tuesday night church talk show in the New Uanu Valley that airs at 6 p.m. So I'm just saying we're moving up in the world. I was informed of that just before we started. As folks know, this is a chance to get to know some of the friends of ours in the community sometimes. Sometimes we have question and answer. Next week, we're going to have a concert from Doris Justice, everyone. And yeah, but tonight, we are very, very lucky to have with us Thaddeus Pham from the Department of Health and also in the sex and gender minority work group that I know him from and some others to talk a little bit about what the state is doing and the Department of Health is doing for those of our siblings who identify in different ways of affection or identity. And we're very excited. So Thaddeus, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so honored to be at the #1 6 p.m. slot for New Uanu Pau Hana. So
Yeah,
that's really good.
I hope that you don't get too nervous because of it. I do want to say that Thaddeus is a very busy man, so tonight's Pau Hana will be abbreviated. Perhaps this will be part 1 at about a half hour, and then we'll do part 2 another time in the coming weeks, something like that. And so we will have a little bit of a shortened event. Plus, I will have to pop out and take the tinfoil off my my lasagna right now. So while I'm doing that, Thaddeus, could you just say exactly where you work and a little bit about who you are? That would be great.
Sure, thanks, Reverend. And hi, everyone. So again, I'm Thaddeus Pham. I'm he, him. I'm the hepatitis coordinator for the Department of Health. And I'm also the co-chair of our sexual and gender minority work group, which is a community coalition that really came out of a couple reports that we did. I'll also add that I'm known by many names in the community. So some people know me as the Queen of Hepatitis, but I think we can just all agree that everyone can just call me Your Majesty, and I'll still respond to that as well.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, so that's my intro, I guess. But I can give more information if folks want.
Yeah, there'll probably be a few questions. As a reminder, everyone, if you have questions, go ahead and send them to me privately in the chat. It kind of helps the flow go so that our guests aren't kind of looking at the chat and trying to get everything. Yeah, I always imagine, Reverend was a pretty good moniker. I never considered Her Royal Highness or his Royal Highness. So congratulations. First,
Thank you.
To me, when I met you and saw that was, I saw a little bit about your background. Can you say a little bit something about why hepatitis? Why that area is what you're employed to do? Are there multiple other areas, or is there a public health concern, particularly with that maybe some of us aren't aware of?
Yeah, sure. So regarding hepatitis, so actually I'll step back a little bit. So I actually was never trained in public health, but I don't know if you folks remember Borders at Ward Center, that magical place. So I used to work there. So if you recognize me, I might have sold you a book, many, many years ago. But so I was working at Borders, and my coworker was actually an HIV counselor at the Kaimuki Free Clinic. And she said I had the personality of someone who should be in public health and be doing HIV work. So I started to work in the free clinic there, providing services for folks around HIV. And it was there that I started learning about hepatitis, and really how hepatitis, just like HIV, is inextricable from our work in social justice. So when my colleague went on to become the head of the statewide syringe exchange, she asked me to step into her role as the hepatitis queen. She passed the crown to me, and I gladly took it. And that was about 11 years ago.
Wow.
And hepatitis is a concern. It's not as talked about for many reasons, and primarily due to stigma, because hepatitis affects people who are typically marginalized. So pretty much, if you imagine, everything that happened in the past 4 years with the previous administration, every community that was affected adversely is a community that we fight to protect. So when we talk about hepatitis, we're talking about protecting people who are homeless, people who are using drugs, people with mental health issues. LGBTQ, immigrants, migrants, refugees, like all of these communities are what we address and try to support with when we do our hepatitis work.
So one of the things that comes up when I hear that is a word that it started maybe more like 6 or 7 years ago. I started hearing it more, which is intersectionality. And
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about this kind of intersection of
Mm-hmm.
health and marginalized communities. Can you say something about what you found here in Hawaii? Like maybe because I come from, I mean, I've only been here about 3.5 years, but about the intersectionality of public health or in particular hepatitis for you, and who we are trying to care for here, either on this island or throughout the state.
Yeah, sure. That's so interesting you've brought up intersectionality because our hepatitis coalition, Hep Free Hawaii, one of the 4 core values is intersectionality. So really acknowledging that we have this saying that we say in the community and when I present, and it's very simple, but it's things are related to other things. Or if you like John Muir, for those of you who are very much into environmental stuff, when you pull something up by the roots, you find it connected to the rest of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you like Walt Whitman, right? I am the universe, I am the cosmos, and everything is related to everything else. So really this idea that when we're talking about hepatitis or any piece of public health, if you pull it even a little bit, it's really tied to everything else. And in a way, our work in Hawaii is very much embracing that concept, right? I think because we are so connected, we're an island chain in, the most isolated island chain in the world. And so that connection and that idea of relationships is really important for us doing the work in hepatitis. So definitely hepatitis, is an important issue all across the world, but in Hawaii especially, I think we find that piece around intersection and relationships is all the more powerful, I think, because of where we live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and relationships is something I wanted to kind of ask about because it sounds like you got the job at Borders, and then you were passed the job because of the relationship you had with your supervisor, and it seems like building relationship. Because I gotta say, like when I meet someone who works at the Department of Health at the state of Hawaii, I kind of imagine like a dim, like linoleum floor office and a desk from the 50s and like using the word venereal disease and just like something. And so can you say something about how your relationships, it seems to me, has pulled the Department of Health into really a very present, very now, very relevant approach to these things? Is that, it sounds like it's relationships, but can you say something about that maybe?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to confirm to you all officially, since it's being recorded, that the linoleum floors are still there. And we still have the desks from 1950. Actually, it's been updated to 1967. So now we have updated stuff. But I think like any state entity in Hawaii and anywhere, I am in a bureaucracy and it's very slow moving and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. But I think that I think there are glimmers, there are a lot of interesting things happening with folks trying to push bureaucracy into a more innovative and relational space. And I think we're lucky.
Do you carry lamb?
No, not today. I'm sorry.
When will you get it?
Sorry, I'm not sure
okay.
who that is.
That's okay. I'll confirm that I don't carry lamb though. I'm so sorry.
It's Alice.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, go for it. Go for it then.
No, and yeah, and I think there's opportunity. I think something that I've learned. So I worked in hepatitis for 11 years now. 11, yeah, and we've never been well funded. So I think that's also why there's a little bit more freedom in the work that I do because it's not tied to a monetary thing. Because it's not well funded, we say this a lot too, that our capital is not financial capital, but relational capital or relationship capital, as I kind of alluded to. So we are always building bridges and trying to find opportunities So pretty much every challenge, every bureaucratic challenge, every wall we go up against, we see as an opportunity. And we know sometimes it just takes a matter of time, whether it's 5 years or more, usually. But yeah, I think it's like a frame of mind, and we're hoping that maybe that will shift other folks into how they look at their work in the health department and into kind of these larger structures.
Yeah, one of the things I found about bureaucracies is that, yes, they are slow to get things done, but they're also slow to notice when you're doing whatever the heck you want.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what? I mean, sometimes I feel like, I don't know if you like envision a castle, right? And then we're trying to like bring people into the castle where it's warm and everything like that. So I feel like my role is knowing the castle well enough to know where the back door is and holding it open and be like, okay, come in. So I think that's kind of the role, like the mole on the inside maybe or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, like, to see, because in a way you're thinking of your work structurally. When you talk about a castle, like how you are moving people through the structure, and the only way to do that is to be, I mean, after 11 years, you qualify as an expert clearly in the structure of how this all works, and so that's powerful. On a day-to-day basis, what are you doing though? I mean, is it programs? Is it education? Is it clinic visits? Like, what is sort of your role day to day?
So because of the the nature of my role, I'm the only person dedicated to hepatitis formally in the health department. And so I pretty much go soup to nuts. Like I do everything that's, so well, pre-COVID, I would be giving vaccines at our syringe exchange in Chinatown, and would also be commenting on legislative policy and making recommendations at the federal and at the state level. So it's really, it's less of like what I do and more of what opportunities arise and being nimble enough to be ready for those opportunities. So in a kind of wonderful way, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't be nice to have more money, but I think sometimes necessity is the mother of invention or whatever, right? That Aesop's fable. But I've had to become very nimble and really adept at many, many things in order to kind of be ready for when cool things come up and I can kind of just run in there and help out. And that's kind of what happened with the sexual and gender minority work group too.
Yeah, can you tell everyone what that is? It's mostly the way we've been interacting, how I got to know how many things you were really looking at. Can you just tell the folks about the sexual and gender minority work group?
Sure, yeah. So I'll give you a little like a mini history on how it came to be. So the Sexual and Gender Minority Work Group is a health department appointed work group, or not appointed, but it's a work group that's kind of under the blessing of the health department, and it really involves community feedback. And basically, what it is we hold this space to for community members to tell us what the main issues are for sexual and gender minority people in Hawaii, and then we try to meet those needs. So it's kind of straightforward, right? But a lot more messy and complicated than that.
Yeah.
But what it came out of was a report that had come out in 2017 from the health department. It was the first ever sexual and gender minority health report from the state of Hawaii. And it was a huge deal. And that came out, speaking of opportunity, because there just happened to be the right people in the right places within the health department. So different queer people with different levels of expertise forming almost like a secret cabal and creating a report to
Don't
be like,
tell
and
them all we do this, Batty. Don't tell everyone there's a secret cabal. Oh, sorry, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, nothing happened. We didn't do anything. No, but it was great. Everyone was in the right place. So we had like epidemiologists, data, hardcore data people like myself who are community organizers. We had people who are really adept at like communications and creating reports and creating press releases. So it just worked out. It was a perfect storm, and it was the right place. And it was just, we seized the opportunity, and I think it bore fruit, and is still bearing fruit.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And then you also have, it brings in people from the outside as well. I mean, obviously you just said that, but that from the community to get as many kind of vantage points as you can, right?
Mhm.
What have been some of the things that have come out of the work group of late, like things that you're working on?
So currently, the work group identified, so the committee identified 4 main priorities, and it's creating a website, which we have now. So the Department of Health has a dedicated sexual and gender minority website. Um, doing policy work. So that's my co-chair, the community co-chair, Jen Jenkins, is pushing a lot of legislative things through the legislature right now, if you folks want to follow it. For example, there's resolutions on collecting LGBTQ data in our prison systems, so we know truly what the burden is on these communities. It's creating covering trans health services by insurance companies. And Jen last or 2 years ago was responsible for using these reports and using the data to create that 3rd gender marker on our state licenses. So now folks can opt for a 3rd gender, which is gender marker X, by self-attestation. So there's a lot of great things that have come out of this, just by providing people the space and the data to kind of move forward.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, we met also on a call about bringing PFLAG back to Hawaii. Does everyone know what PFLAG is? I'm getting lots of nodding, and yes. But for people that don't, do you want to just say a quick word about that?
Yeah, so I couldn't tell you anymore what the letters stand for, but
Okay.
basically PFLAG is the foundation, or it's an organization that really highlights the power of family members and parents initially to support people from our community and really have them be part of the community in that loving, supportive way. And I think it's especially powerful because a lot of people in our community don't have that relationship with their parents sometimes, not all the time, but it can be a more fraught, I think, in our community for parents to support them.
I was thinking the other day about PFLAG and thank you, Francine. Parents and Friends of Gays and Lesbians. And
Thank you.
anyway, we'll do it later. I was thinking about connections and family and remembering the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and how many of our siblings in that community identify mothers, or and we're in the house of, like, the family language is so powerful and potent in especially in that marginalized community, but in other marginalized communities, making a family from a family that didn't work is also something that, have you seen that in communities you work with?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, that people from that community call me the mother of hepatitis. So ties
Wow,
back
yeah,
in
you
from the
wear
house of
many,
hepatitis.
heavy
Yeah.
is the head that wears so many crowns. So
But it is an interesting question you asked, because we hear a lot more openness for trans people in general, I think, in media and stuff, but the lived experience is still, it's this kind of idea of people disowning their kids still happens regularly. Like just the other day, I was on a panel with some of our work group members, and they were sharing that they were disowned and they don't have a relationship with their parents anymore. So, it's we're improving, but people are still going through a lot with family things.
yeah, we actually have a member on the call right now who was a guardian ad litem for many years for folks going through things like that in affectionate minorities in Hawaii. It was not easy to do or easy to watch. It's a scary thing here. Every year, Deborah Smith comes and says a word at the church to us about about her work at Yo and also just Waikiki Health in general and other ways that's going. Do you work with Deborah much? I'm guessing you do. So
I love Deb. Yeah, she's great. I love her.
Yeah. And it is a reminder every year to kind of hear how things are going there. So what are some, so we've talked about the gender group and we've talked about, you know, around this. I am a little curious, and I know this is only part one and we only have about 8 minutes left. And sorry, for those of you joining late, I forgot to tell you that because Thaddeus, you know, is in such high demand, we can only have him for a half hour today. So we are kind of coming in on the end here, but I am curious a little bit about you. Were you born here? Did you come here? A little bit about your relationship to these lands.
Sure. Yeah. So I was actually born in California. My parents were Vietnamese refugees. And so I grew up in a very diverse community in Southern California. And that's kind of what I was used to. I've always loved the ocean, which makes sense that I'm here. So it's a good thing. And I actually I'm a marine biologist by training.
Okay.
So I got my degree in marine biology, and I moved to Hawaii because I was working with dolphins. I don't know if you folks remember over at Kewalo, there used to be a dolphin facility there. Do you remember that?
There's a marine biologist professor on this call right now raising his hand
really?
to you. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, Kabimal, so Kewalo Basin Marine Mammal Lab. So I used to work there a little bit. I interned there and then I came back and I was there for a little bit, right at the end of it, actually.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the dolphins passed away primarily due to squamous cell carcinoma or like oral cancer. And then, you know, that was pretty hard for many of us. We had a deep connection with the animals. And then that's when I moved to Borders. And from there, you know, the rest. And then my reign began.
Yeah.
It's hepatitis. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Mhm.
I was kind of wondering, one of the things I kind of ask people who have jobs that I don't fully understand is sometimes to try to help us understand, like, what was your last big win at the Department of Health? Like, what was something like an accomplishment or something to give us a sense of like what you're striving for and what feels good when it happens, to try to give us a sense of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. The last big win was probably in August. And it was, we released our hepatitis elimination strategy called HepFree 2030. And it's to eliminate hepatitis in Hawaii, basically. But it was the biggest win because we are very community focused, as you can probably already tell from what I'm talking about. And so creating this plan was over a year during COVID, right? Of engaging over 160 different community members, over 24 formal meetings, but then also like tons of informal meetings. So like pre-COVID, I was sitting in the back of the syringe exchange van in Chinatown, just seeing what people thought, you know, people who were using drugs, people who were homeless, just to ensure that everyone's feedback was meaningful and honored. And this is a lot of work, but I think, you know, what came out of it was the community's ideas on what to do. And when it was released and we, you know, like it got our partners at the World Hepatitis Alliance, you know, globally promoted it. So it got a lot of like awareness, and it was very moving and a very proud moment because it was uplifting the voice of our community members at all levels, not just policymakers, not just bureaucrats like myself, but people who are affected. And enshrining and making it valuable. So that was like a major win. Anything where we can uplift people is always a major win for me.
Yeah, putting the voices of the people really being impacted and is also, I mean, it's a huge, you know, it's just the way things like this work, you know, social organizing and things like that. But yeah, that raises the question I often ask people when I hear that something that happened in Hawaii got national notice. It does, I feel like there are aspects of society here, of culture, of love, whatever you want to call it, of aloha, that really could benefit the wider certainly the wider nation, if not the wider world. What are there aspects that you've seen here that are true of that for you, or in your work, that you feel is something that could be shared or enjoyed by folks? Maybe that's the example, maybe what just happened, but anything like that come to mind?
Yeah, I've been, and that's great that you, and by the way, Reverend TJ did not feed me this, so that's not, I just like love to talk. That's why I just have an answer for everything. But I have been thinking about this recently during COVID and as we did this whole process. And I think that's something that is really beautiful about Hawaii that I've noticed is this that a lot of actions come out of values rather than ambition. Sometimes we still have ambition, of course, I'm not saying that, but for example, like, right, so yeah, it's like, for example, for our hepatitis coalition, we start every meeting by restating our values, and there are 4 of them, right? So we're like, okay, so before we move forward, again, just so we all know, our 4 values that we're going to use to move forward are harm reduction, and we'll explain it, intersectionality, social justice, and aloha. And we ground everything in values so that our actions reflect the values rather than some goal that we're trying, we're trying to meet, right? So as long, I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but grounding in values, I think, is very powerful, and it really informs what we do, or we try to do at least.
Yeah, connecting our actions to our values is deeply spiritual. I mean, it's how, literally how one makes meaning of one's life. And so, I mean, that's just my humble opinion. I don't know. I'm just the minister here, but it really is. You've been extremely generous to make time in your busy schedule to be here for the first half of our time with you of Pau Hana. So I want to let you get to your 6:30 commitment, and I also want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I'm going to stop the recording and just say aloha and mahalo, Thaddeus.
Awesome. Thank you all, and I'll see you for part 2. So thanks, Reverend. I'll look for your email. Take care.